Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. So, legacy automakers are getting desperate as they are losing China and their EVs do not sell very well. So, something new and radical must be done, like changing their logo. Yes, we are seeing some desperate move from the legacy automakers to try to stay relevant in China as their house of cards comes crumbling down around them. This is not only the Germans that are trying to rebrand themselves, more and more are joining the party. But the Chinification of the premium German car brand in China continues, as Germans are losing their foothold in China with their uncompetitive EVs and an uncompetitive price. So they have to do something. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. So we are seeing more and more of the legacy automakers struggling to find their way. So they're trying to rebrand themselves by killing their own recognizable logos. So let's start with Jaguar, that just released a new ad, not showing a single car. This ad could be for a fashion show or some new shoes. No one knows, as they show nothing. Just as Elon wrote on X, "Do you sell cars?" So their only thing they show in this ad is their new so-called logo, as it is now just their name, Jaguar. So I think Stacker Auto summed it up perfectly. Jaguar, the latest luxury brand to succumb to the sans-serif invasion, apparently believing that the path to modernity requires erasing decades of identity. The legendary crawling badge gone, the instant recognizable feeling that endures countless of bonnets, replaced by yet another minimalist word mark that could just as easily sell premium yogurt. This bland rebrand accompanies Jaguar's attempt to transformation into an all-electric luxury player, with future models set to cost twice as much, because nothing says we're different quite like looking exactly like everyone else. They are calling it exuberant modernism. Yes, really. Complete with a trendy woke marketing campaign aiming at that ever-elusive younger, wealthier demographics. So here we are, watching another distinctive brand dive headfirst into the sea of sameness. Jaguar's brawling cat didn't just fade away. It was sacrificed on the altar of generic luxury branding. When every luxury brand looks the same, what makes any of them special? Yes, they are desperately trying to stay relevant in the market, by trying to make their brand hip and new. But the situation is very serious, as the legacy automakers are losing in the e-race. I have talked about it before that if you make a really crappy product, you will lose your good reputation, and that can be really damaging to your brand. I have talked about it with Volkswagen before, that if they don't come out with better EVs, they will simply get the reputation of making subpar EVs, and that is exactly what has happened in China. The Chinese people love the German ICE cars, and still do, with the few that are still buying ICE cars, but they don't want their EVs because they are just not up to par. And now your brand is suddenly a burden for you in the new world of EVs, and that can be extremely difficult to get rid of that reputation, even if you change your product for the better. as there is also the public delay. It can take years for your improvement to even be recognized by mainstream media and then the public. Just take Tesla, for example. We still see people that think Tesla doesn't know how to make cars and has bad build quality. But the reality is that even Toyota is copying Tesla's production method and have called the Tesla Model Y a work of art, and car manufacturing experts like Sandy Munro has called the refreshed Model 3 the best sedan in the world, that is on par with the best in the industry. But you still find haters that are stuck in their world 7 years ago when Tesla's build quality was not up to par. The same thing is happening for legacy automakers. I think that it is why someone like Jaguar is trying to rebrand themselves, as they had the Jaguar I-Pace, but it was not up to the task to compete against Tesla, and their sales has been a disaster and has vanished to next to nothing now, and it will be discontinued in 2025. So I don't think Jaguar wants to be associated with that failure of an EV. They want to destroy that EV's reputation and start over. But Jaguar is not alone. We are seeing some of the Germans trying to do the same, but only in China, as they have basically lost the EV market completely there. And China is the Germans' most important market. Without it, there are no German automakers. And as the Chinese market is now over 50% plug-in vehicles and growing fast, the Germans just can't keep up. The registration number of electric cars and plug-in hybrids are especially disappointing for the German brands, as we also saw in the German article from Handelsblatt earlier this year. Although Volkswagen, BMW and Mercedes still dominate the business with combustion engines in China, its significance is rapidly declining. The German car makers are trapped in China. Their brand heritage becomes a burden, says an expert. Many young Chinese people reject Western goods unlike their parents. They prefer to buy electric cars from domestic providers. The dilemma exemplified by Volkswagen's top electric model, the ID.7. Since its market launch in December 2023, Volkswagen had sold only 4,218 units of that model in China by the end of March 2024, according to the company. Comparable competing models sell much better in China. The problem, the premium and luxury niche in which the Germans are particularly strong, is being redefined in China. What counts are no longer powerful engines, but cleverly connected vehicles with the latest communication technologies. Here, the Germans are not at the far front, but the Chinese are the innovators. The big question is whether the Western manufacturer can still win the competition in battery electric vehicles in China, or just cash out on the combustion engine market, says Fabian Brandt at the strategic consultancy Oliver Wyman. However, the pace of innovation and the price war brings out something positive, explains Brandt. Those who survive in this tough environment are also optimal positioned for the future globally. A defensive position in China would be fundamentally wrong. The German car makers must fully participate here. There is no imaginable future for them without China. Exactly. That is what I have been talking about in quite a few videos, that the Germans are losing China, and this is where most of them get about 40 to 50% of their profits. Losing China could mean losing the company altogether. What company can survive losing about 50% of their profits in a very short amount of time? But as I said, Jaguar is not the only one that is trying to redefine themselves. Audi is having trouble in China with their EV sales. Audi's technology is perceived as outdated in China, so something must be done, right? Well, Audi is basically giving up in China, but I'll get back to that in a moment. But the first thing they of course do is a new branding strategy in China, where instead of the iconic four-ring logo, vehicles will now be identified with Audi in capital letters. Yeah. This move is aimed at differentiate the Chinese market offerings from the global Audi brand. So this is only for the Chinese market. So again, because Audi has got a bad reputation with the EVs, not their ICE cars, they are trying to rebrand themselves to get back in the game in China. Audi says that the Audi E concept car here represent a preview of 3 upcoming mid and full-size models it will introduce starting in mid-2025. Looks nice, but looks like so many others. So why did I say that Audi has basically given up in China? Well, because they have basically been reduced to a car designer. Because, as they also wrote back in the German article about the German car makers, what counts are no longer powerful engines but cleverly connected vehicle with the latest communication technology, and none of the Germans have software-defined vehicles. They just have electric cars with ICE vehicle software. We have even seen their EVs saying they need an oil change. That is how bad it is. But Audi will design the new electric car, but it will be with Chinese tech inside. They will use the IM platform tech, plus the Momenta smart driving tech and SAIC's motor-invested Z1 smart cockpit tech. It's going to utilize the supply chain of a lot of the SAIC Motors smart EV brands, IM in particular. So it will basically be an SAIC EV with all the Chinese tech inside, but with an Audi badge on the front. That is no longer the beloved 4 rings, but just their name. So their slogan, Versprung durch Technik, which translates to advancement through technology. Well, I guess for Audi in China, they now have to change that slogan to advancement through Chinese technology. Just as we have seen Volkswagen partner up with XPeng to get their help to make their upcoming EV for the Chinese market. They know they cannot catch up in time in China on their own. They need help from the Chinese to get this one right. So let's see if Volkswagen will make some rebranding strategy when they come out with their new EVs in collaboration with XPeng. But it is not always panning out as hoped with these joint partnerships. Daimler is still in partnership with Geely that own almost 10% of Mercedes, but they made a joint venture back in 2009 to develop a new generation of smart electric models that are assembled in their purpose-built electric car factory in China. But here, 5 years later, Mercedes BEV venture in China has not gone very well, as Mercedes BEV sales made a 31% drop for the third quarter here in 2024, year over year. So we might see some new or more collaborations between Geely and Mercedes in the near future, as they definitely also have to do something to not lose China completely. But it's not just Geely that own parts of Daimler. BAIC, Beijing Automotive, also hold about 10% of Daimler, so that means that these two major Chinese stakeholders control nearly 20% of Daimler, highlighting the significant influence of Chinese automakers in Mercedes-Benz ownership structure already today. But Mercedes might have done a bigger mistake with their joint venture that they have pulled out of, as Mercedes-Benz was initially involved in BYD in establishing their Denza brand through a joint venture established all the way back in 2010. However, over time, Mercedes-Benz reduced its involvement. When Denza was launched, it was a 50-50 joint venture between BYD and Mercedes-Benz. But by 2021, Mercedes had significantly reduced its stake in Denza to just 10%, indicating a decrease in direct involvement. And by September 2024, BYD fully required the remaining shares of Denza from Mercedes-Benz, effectively ending the joint venture partnership. This move means that Mercedes-Benz is no longer in partnership of developing or ownership of the Denza brand, and have stopped their partnership with BYD that has become the biggest automaker in China. Maybe not the best move? Well, Mercedes did also famously buy close to 10% of Tesla back in 2009 that helped Tesla survive. But if Mercedes has kept that $50 million investment in Tesla, it would have been worth about $93 billion today. But they sold it back in 2014, so they didn't even get part of the huge gain we have seen with the Tesla stock. That is probably giving Mercedes more headaches than dropping the joint venture with BYD. when Mercedes' market cap today is only about $58 billion. So the joint ventures have been a bit of a roller coaster for the German automakers, but the problems are very real for the Germans. And this chart also shows very nicely what the Germans are up against. We see the Chinese brand is even beating the Germans in performance, and we know they have better software as well. But as you can see here, the price in China are what really is killing the Germans, as they have an inferior product they're trying to sell at a much higher price. Not just twice as expensive as we see with the comparison with the Mercedes here, but the BMW i7 is about 4 times as expensive as the Denza Z9. And the same goes for the SU7 compared to the Taycan. So, because they could take a premium for their German ICE cars, they think they can do the same for the EVs. But they are seeing that because their first attempt of making EVs has failed to be on par with the Chinese, their brand is no longer helping them in the EV world, but has become a burden. And that is why we are seeing them trying to rebrand themselves like Audi has done in China. Let's see if that will pay off. So, the Chinification of the foreign premium German car brands in China continues. But I guess that is one way to try to survive the bloodbath that is coming. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.